Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks for joining me. Now in this video, I will be sharing with you how much I spent on my flight training. Now, I want you to pay attention to something. The cost of the training isn't really what I want you to pay attention to, but the ways in which you could save money if you're in training or if you're planning to start training is what I want you to pay attention to. Don't really be too focused on the amount I spent, but just pay attention to the ways in which I could have saved money if I knew better, and that's why I'm sharing this information with you. Before I go on, let me give you a quick background about myself. My name is Stephen Ojo, and I came from Nigeria in 2010 for the intent of starting training. I started my training in 2010, late 2010 to be specific, and I finished up to the commercial level in 2011. That same month, I think I took about a month break, and then I started my CFI and TFII training. And by 2012, I was already done with all those training. One of the first things that I would also like you to know is that I became a flight instructor myself. So I was also teaching people, and I understood the reasons why people wanted to go through training fast and save money, because I was a student and I knew how difficult it was for me to have enough money to complete my training during my own time. The other thing also is that there were times I was grounded due to lack of funds, and yeah, that obviously slowed down my training pace. So, all that information will be disclosed to you in this video, so stay tuned if you want to get the most value out of this. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is this: when you're looking at flight schools online, you got to remember that they will often give you the best possible quote so that you don't get scared away and chase you to the next competitor. So you got to understand that that number is the best possible number they can come up with. Now, the truth is, when it comes to training, just like learning to ride a bicycle or learning to drive a car, you got to understand that it takes a while to get to understand some of these concepts of training. Well, we weren't born to fly, so we have to train to become pilots. And that is why the amount you may spend on your training will probably and most likely be different from what the school gives to you. So you got to keep that at the back of your mind as you look at all these quotes they are giving you. So my first tip for you is to understand the cost breakdown, all right? Because when you get an admission offer from a school, most likely they should send you a cost breakdown of your training and what to expect during your training. Now, that cost breakdown, I would want you to really go line by line to understand what they mean and what is not included in those numbers. Sometimes they omit some information from those numbers, and you need to do your own due diligence to make sure that those numbers are accounted for in the overall cost of training. Because at the end of the day, the last thing you want is to come to a school, start training, and then realize that, oh, I didn't plan for all of these extra expenses. And I'll be giving examples of that as we go along. Now, the truth also is that if you do not have any pilot in your family or someone that has gone through this training before, there's a chance that you won't understand some of the meaning of the words or some of the things that they actually use in those cost breakdown. So my own suggestion to you is to give your admission officer a phone call and ask for clarifications so that you understand exactly what those things mean and you know when they are required. Because you see, some of these flight schools will often charge you way ahead in advance when you haven't even gotten there yet. And the reason why they do that is to lock you in. Well, you got to keep that in mind because they are a business and they need to make profit. So your own goal is to make sure that you don't get in situations where you are locked in and you don't have options to move around if you need to change schools for any reason. The other thing I would like you to know is that there are certain items that are considered merchandise, all right? So for example, like the books you buy or like the instrument rating materials that you may need. Those materials can sometimes be bought at a cheaper price, maybe online or even at pilot stores. And that is one of the ways that you can save money. But the thing is, most flight schools often don't want you to do that because once you do that, they know that they're not going to make as much money from the students. So they always prefer that you buy the materials from them so that they can make the most money. And this is something that you also need to ask your admissions officer to let them know that, hey, I have means to purchase some of these items from a different place or a different brand, and it will save you a lot of money. Would they let you do that? If they say yes, make sure that that is noted. Now, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get to the school and then they start to tell you that, no, you cannot buy this from a different person or from a different store because you already paid for it. Or for example, you cannot use something different from the brand that they recommend. Now, I understand that certain brands are used to make this training a lot easier, if I use that word. Like for example, if you use the Jepson books, well, that's something that you should probably stick to because that's what your instructors probably used to teach. And I would also recommend that you go along with that. But certain materials can easily be acquired from a different source, and it's just up to you to find a cheaper source. And if the school is giving you at an exorbitant price, then it's your duty to make sure that you can save along the way by buying from a cheaper source. Now, another part that I want you to also remember is that when it comes to training, your instructor has a lot of control in terms of ways in which they can help you save money. Now, you as a student must be willing to do the hard work. For example, is it possible for your instructor to do 2 lessons in one day or maybe 3 lessons in one day? Because if you can do that, then the instructor can speed up the process for you as long as you are able to keep up, because that's where you need to do the homework. If you are not doing your homework, if you're not studying up ahead of time, well, the instructor cannot really do much. But if you study ahead of time and the instructor says that you're ready to move on to the next lesson, well, it saves the instructor a lot of headache as well, because you can do 2-3 lessons in one day and move on to the next lesson. Sometimes some people do 2 flights in a day because the students are so prepared and they're ready to move on. And that's something that you can also do as long as you are keeping up with the pace of things. That's also a good way for you to save money. Now, let's talk about some of the penalties that may be imposed on you during training. Example of one is when you call in sick. Certain schools can easily cancel a flight because you called in sick. Certain schools may decide to impose a certain fee for calling in sick. And I understand that, we all get sick, but the truth is some students take advantage of some of these ways to avoid lessons. And you as a student, if you are truly motivated to work, you shouldn't have to call in sick if you are not truly sick. You need to understand that these penalties can really add up to hundreds and thousands of dollars if care is not taken. And that is why it's up to you to make sure that you are putting your best effort in all your lessons and also coming prepared. For example, if you show up to a flight and you don't have your checklist or you don't have your POH and all these materials, well, then you're probably not ready to fly. And it's up to the instructor to really impose maybe a no-show fee on you because you didn't show up prepared. And it's the truth. There's no point going to fly if the student is not ready. It only saves you money, but you are losing money to those fees because the instructor needs to be paid for his own time. I believe I've covered most of the information that I also want to share in this particular video. There's still more things that I would like to share. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, consider subscribing now. So let's go over the cost of my own training. Now, the first thing you notice is I actually put about $5,300 right away. The reason is because although I didn't have all the money at once, my own suggestion is not to pay everything even if you have it, because remember, what if the school closes down tomorrow? What are you going to do? You probably have to lose your money or file a lawsuit to get your money back. So my own suggestion is, pay as you go, depending on the setup or depending on the school you go to. You got to remember that I went to a regular flight school. Now, if you go to like a college or maybe a university that offers flight training, then, the setup might be a bit different, but just, do your own due diligence to make sure that, you don't lose all your money. So I started with $5,300 and then the next one was another $5,300. But the thing is, you may notice that I did some lessons, in one day. There are times I did 2 lessons, I did 3 lessons in one day to save money. And again, that's exactly what I shared with you at the beginning of this video, that, there are certain things that you can do to save money if you plan ahead and if you work with your instructor. So I highly recommend that. So I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom here to show you exactly how much I spent. I spent about $83,000. All right. Now, here's something that you need to know. The code I had when I started my training was actually to finish up to my commercial level. And I was given a quote of about $52,000. The key thing here is that by the time I finished my commercial, I had spent about $62,000 or $60,000, somewhere in that range. And I then did my CFI, CFII, and all these other trainings along with it. And obviously that added up to that $83,000. There are certain lessons I had to repeat because either I didn't do well in the performance and during the training, or it was just a bad day. And as a student, you will have bad days at times, especially when you're still learning. And those extra flights definitely means I spend more money. Here's the thing that I want you to take away from this video. The amount I spent isn't really what I want you to pay attention to, but ways in which you can save money and how I saved money is what I want to pay attention to. The first thing is obviously do multiple lessons as much as you can and be well prepared for each lesson. That's my second point, be well prepared for each lesson, because when you do that, you can make the instructor's life very easy, which means that he's probably going to save you money because he's not going to waste time just, going over things that you should already know. The third thing is for your flight lessons, come prepared, avoid fees or penalties that may cost you money along the way. Fourth thing is understand some of the breakdown of your training. Understand the ways in which you can buy certain things out of the flight school environment that may save you some money compared to spending money on property or in a flight school where you may end up incurring, extra charges because you're buying from the school. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is this. You got to remember that this doesn't include your living expenses, your food, and all those other expenses that comes along the way. That's going to be a different video. This is just to focus on the flight training aspect. Well, I hope I've been able to go over some of this with you. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I would love to get back to you on those questions if I can answer them. But also don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, please. I would really appreciate it. And I'm going to see you in the next one.